Welcome to the program. I'm Okpayemi Owoseni. We start off with business news. Now, despite growing concerns over Nigeria's rising public debt and the rising burden of debt servicing, the Nigerian government borrowed a staggering 10.85 trillion naira from domestic investors within the first 4 months of 2025. This aggressive borrowing comes amid a 48.6% surge in the country's total public debt, which jumped to 144.66 trillion naira in 2024, up from 97.34 trillion naira recorded in 2023. Now, of this, the Nigerian government alone is responsible for 137.28 trillion naira. That's about 95% of the total debt stock. With domestic borrowing continuing to grow in early 2025, this upward debt trajectory shows little sign of slowing down. And while Nigeria battles internal fiscal pressures, global development also continues to impact economic stability. One of such cases is the evolving trade relations between the United States and China, as both countries have reached a temporary trade agreement, announcing a 90-day reduction in tariffs on each other's imports. Now, the move comes after 2 days of intense negotiations in Switzerland, marking the first major breakthrough since tensions escalated under President Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies. Now, under the revised tariff structure, the U.S. tariff on Chinese imports will drop from 145% to 30% by May 14th, including those tied to fentanyl-related trade measures, while Chinese tariff on U.S. goods will also be reduced from 125% to 10%, signaling an effort to restore economic stability between the world's two largest economies. We'll take a short break here and be back with updates from the corporate world. Welcome back. The Dangote Petrochemicals refinery is making the headlines again, this time with a quiet but strategic price move. The company has introduced a 10 naira reduction on the ex-depot price of premium motor spirit, lowering the cost from the official 835 naira per litre to 825 naira per litre. Though the price cut is informal, with marketers still paying 835 naira upfront, they however now receive a 10 naira rebate upon loading at the refinery. This slight adjustment has enabled Dangote's customers to retail petrol between 830 naira and 835 naira, undercutting importers and private depot operators who typically offer at higher rates. And Fidelity Bank PLC, one of Nigeria's leading financial institutions, has announced a remarkable financial performance for the first quarter of 2025, recording a profit before tax of 105.8 billion naira, representing an impressive growth of 167.8% when compared to the 39.5 billion naira recorded in the first quarter of 2024. The bank's unaudited financial statement released on the Nigerian Stock Exchange on April 30, 2025, highlights a substantial increase in gross earnings, which rose to 315.4 billion naira, marking a year-on-year growth of 64.2% from 192.1 billion naira in the same period of 2024. We'll go on a short break now, but when Money Matters return, we'll turn our focus to President Bola Tinubu's sweeping new policy targeting public sector procurement. I'll have the full details after this break. Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu has issued a ban on the importation of foreign goods by ministries, departments and agencies on goods or services available in the country without a waiver from the Bureau of Public Procurement. The new policy, dubbed the Renewed Hope Nigeria First policy, aims at strengthening the domestic economy, promoting local content, and reducing Nigeria's dependence on imports. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who revealed this at the last Federal Executive Council meeting, says the policy targeted at prioritizing use of local goods and services will create more jobs and also help to boost the economy if properly implemented by all tiers of government.
No procurement of foreign goods or services already available locally shall proceed without justification and a written waiver from the BPP. I want to take that again. No procurement of foreign goods or services already available locally shall proceed without justification and a written waiver from BPP. Number 2, where no viable local option exists, contracts must include provisions for technology transfer, local production, or skills development. By way of example, the provision of quota allocations under the Sugar Master Plan should take into consideration participants' backward integration plans and investment in Nigeria and ensure compliance with the Master Plan. This is a major decision taken by the Federal Executive Council today. Number 3, there will also be, the MDS have also been directed to immediately conduct an audit of all procurement plans and submit revised versions in line with these directives. And number 4, breaches will attract sanctions, including cancellation of procurement processes by such MDAs, and indeed disciplinary action against responsible officers. In this direction, like I mentioned earlier, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation has been directed to prepare an executive order to give full legal effect to these resolutions of the Federal Executive Council. Now, what this seeks to do is to domesticate our processes. In other words, where there is the possibility of getting local manufacturers to supply any kind of goods or procure any kind of services, there will be no need for MDS to now procure these goods or services from outside this country. And where there is an exceptional need for these services to be procured from outside, there must be a waiver to be obtained, a written waiver to be obtained by the Bureau of Public Procurement. This is a major shift in government policy aiming to put Nigeria at the heart of all businesses in this country.
Now, with implications that could reshape procurement, job creation, and industrial policy, this directive marks a major economic shift in the country. Now, to unpack what this means for Nigeria's economy, I'm joined now by economist Mukhtar Mohammed. Thank you for joining me on the program, Mr. Mohammed. Now, this is Nigeria's first economic policy to prioritize local industries. Now, I would like to know, how practicable is this policy, considering how dependent Nigeria is on foreign products?
I like what you just said, how practical it is. Because again, saying Nigerian first is one thing, and how practical it is another thing. Now, when you're looking at Nigerian first, you must not also forget that we are one into the world, we are a member of the World Trade Organization, which is that you cannot shut your economy to other countries' goods and services as long as it's a free market. Capitalism is a free market. So for me, Nigerian first is a good pronouncement. But again, you cannot say, oh, the product that was produced here must be also bought by Nigerians, like if you are forcing them to buy. What Nigerians are looking for are quality. Once you are able to give them quality, then they will be able to buy whatever product that you are producing for them. It must also meet international best practice. Secondly, when you look at that, people will say, oh, you want to compare that to America. Donald Trump is in America first. But remember, it's not saying that other countries cannot come in with their own product, but they just say, look, we'll make their product more expensive than our own, so that people will be forced to buy our own. That's a strategy. That's a localized, trying to save your local industry. In our own case, our local industry cost of production is very, very high. Either high interest rates, the ability of most Nigerians to purchase some of these products also. It's a major problem. So Nigerian first is good. It's a starting point. But again, like I always say, you look at where you have that competitive advantage. You can't say Nigerian first. We cannot we don't have, you have only 1 million Nigerian companies. This is an assembling plant, Innocence Motor. Can it produce all the cars that we want in Nigeria? And like somebody jokingly say, can the president also begin to use Innocent Motor as his official car since we want to localize everything? So sometimes these statements just come in, but they are not backed with definite actions and plans.
Now, how capable is Nigeria's local manufacturing sector of meeting the demands this policy will create, especially in key areas like technology, construction, and basic goods and commodities in the country?
I think you said it, or how capable are we, especially in the area of construction. You cannot name any Nigerian company, indigenous company that are into construction. There are many of them, but when it comes to government giving this high, very delicate or root network, they try to look for the big of international organizations to give. It's not that the local construction companies are not there; they are there, but again, they are being hampered by a lot of things. Like I've said, cost of getting those equipment into Nigeria also is very high because the exchange rate is high. So they are not able to get the real equipment that they will need, especially in the construction industry. Look at technology. Well, for technology, you can't but salute the courage of the innovations of young Nigerians in that aspect. But even with that, they are lacking in terms of internet infrastructure to drive the kind of goods that we want to see in that sector. So when you say Nigerian first, fantastic in the technology sector, it can actually work, but it would mean that we do a lot of investment in technology. We'll do a lot of technology investment to see that in terms of infrastructure. Then when you look at other products, it's very difficult to say, they can be able to meet the demands of Nigeria. And you talk about agriculture, yes, fine. Before now, we could easily feed ourselves. But it's a challenge now because of the insecurity. So if government want to say Nigerian first policy, what will make the agricultural sector strive is to make sure that they are able to give them security. Then also cost of funding. You can't continue to hike rates and you think that companies will be able to compete. That's why till this moment, we have not been able to take advantage of the African Continental Trade Agreement. That's why we have the population, because we know the cost of our goods in Nigeria will be more expensive compared to the goods in Ghana. So our market will become a dumping ground for some of those goods, and some of them even have higher quality than our own because of the cost of production. So I think when you look at this policy, these three key areas, there's still a lot of work to be done. That's why I said you don't just make those pronouncements, you must back them up with action. Since the president made the pronouncement some 2 days ago, we have not seen any backed up in terms of implementing of this. But we need to be hearing pronouncement from the Minister of Digital Economy. We need to be hearing pronouncement from the Ministry of Agriculture. We should just be hearing pronouncement of how we think that we are going to run this policy. But it was just a statement that was made by the president, and I can assure you that's the end of it.
Now, like you mentioned, it's a very good policy, but then do you think the policy will face implementation challenges and resistance from entrenched procurement interests, even though the Nigerian government says it is determined to enforce compliance at all levels? What do you think the compliance measures should entail?
Sanction. If any parastatal or ministry is not complying, then you sanction them. That's what I think should entail. You see, when you set up a policy, then you must also set up rules. And then you also have to put punishment for anybody that does not follow that. It's only in Nigeria that people can only just refuse to do whatever the president have said, a presidential order, even an executive bill or an executive order. Remember that we shouldn't go too far. Remember the removal of tariff on household item and cultural household item. Up to this moment, I have not seen the light of the day. That's why the president making their pronouncement, because sanctions are not being made out to people that go against it. So for me, for this to work, especially the one that we know we have the capability to do, it's all about procurement. Like you said, it's not something that's hidden in secrecy. Then the government should be able to come heavily on whoever have approved something that can be produced here and trying to get it international. My dear, if you look at this country, just about training, even training of staffs. Recently, we had NNPC sending their staff to London, United Kingdom for training, which could easily be done here by any Nigerian firm. I think when you look at those parastatals and the ministry, what the government will really focus about, all those international courses and training that they used to do, that can be done here, and that will end up a lot of create more job for those Nigerians that are in that sector, and also help keep our depleted foreign reserves.
Now, do you think prioritizing local products in government procurement could stimulate real industrial growth, or do you think it might cause unintended challenges like higher costs or even inflation rising?
Initially, you have higher costs. That is basic. Even in any, see what is happening in the US also, despite the Donald Trump policy, you see that you still have higher costs, which is normal. Because again, when the policy comes in, people will be finding ways to go against that policy to make sure it doesn't work. Definitely you see higher costs. Inflation, definitely you will see margin of inflation, but it cannot be worse from where we are starting from. So definitely I think this policy can actually be able to stimulate, especially in the manufacturing and agricultural sector and even the technological space like I have said. But there must be a deliberate action to see how government can contribute its quota to this growth, not just making those pronouncements. So I totally think it's going to help, but again, we should back it up with actions and with support, especially financial support for some of these smaller businesses to be able to grow.
But what would you say are the most significant hurdles to implementing this policy, especially in terms of quality assurance, infrastructure gap, or workforce skills?
You take out the infrastructure, like I said, one of the hindrances would be that you are a member of the World Trade Organization. You've signed a treaty to run a free economic, a capitalist economics, an economy that is free for everybody to import, to bring in whatever they want to bring in, as long as they meet a certain condition. So you can't say, oh, you will not do that for them again, because for me, I think that's where my challenge is coming from. So those are the challenges that you get. Remember, we're having challenges with the United Kingdom. I'm not talking the United States of America, because of some of the goods that we banned that we banned from coming in there, and that's why Nigeria was among those countries that its goods are going through tariff now. And so you need to look at it. You are a signatory to the World Trade Agreement, so you cannot just say, oh, this product are not coming to your country because you can produce it locally. People will say, oh, China did it, but you need to remember at the time what year China did it, and that is one. And secondly, before China did those things, what they did was that to build massive infrastructure. That is not happening yet. If we have built massive infrastructure, we said, okay, we have all the means. Look at power. We have enough power. Our road networks are good. We've been able to provide securities. Then you can begin to say, you know what, we can locally produce this. We can even begin to locally manufacture our own cars and everything. But all these things involve a lot of infrastructure, like you rightly pointed out. But I think the key disadvantage to this policy as it stands, as I'm looking at it, is that treaty that you signed with World Trade Organization, which makes it a free market.
Well, one of the things the policy stipulates is that it mandates changes to procurement processes and also centralizes oversight under the Bureau of Public Procurement. Now, how effective do you think this could be in curbing corruption and also driving results?
It will be driven by the oversight. Who is in charge? Oversight function, like you rightly pointed out, must be top-notch, especially from the legislative side, from the government side. But again, the challenge we always have in Nigeria is that we build strong, but we don't build strong institutions. For you to get better results when it comes to oversight, it has to be a very strong institution that is likely to by the test of that, handling that aspect of it. Because you have to put a clear-cut policy, clear-cut procedures on how this will be implemented, so that you don't give room for a lot of corrupt tendency or enough of nepotism, also because you know the person, even if it's not qualified. And so that for me is the main challenge in terms of monitoring and in making sure that everything is done well and right, and rightly so. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, like I said, we have strong men. But if we have a strong man that is there, we make sure it works. But we need to move from that strong man and build a very strong institution.
Now, how do you think this might affect Nigeria's global trade relationship, especially with countries where we heavily import from?
Now, I think it's going to affect our trade relationship with a lot of countries. But again, the president said it's what we can produce locally. And definitely that means you are talking about procurement. And in terms of procurement, that means everybody will have to bid. And when you are not saying that they cannot bid, but what is going to happen that you are saying that both countries, you have a local industry that can do it better for you for cheaper rate. So you will not just close your borders that, oh, no other product that is going to come in. I don't think that's what the president means. Like I said, we are a member of the World Trade Organization. I think what he's saying is that we'll make sure that the local industry have more advantage than the foreign industry, especially in the area that we think we can do it locally. That's basically what he said. If that is the case, it's not going to affect our relationship with the foreign companies, because we know that there are some products that we also need that we want to import. We will not just close that border. So it's all about protecting your local economy. But again, in protecting your local economy, you must know that the larger economy can also operate. And in Nigeria, whereby we depend so much on foreign exchange, and we know that that is that determine what inflation is in Nigeria. We have to be careful because we need to attract a lot of foreign direct investors and foreign popular investors. And that is the reason why the president said he has been traveling when he came to power to attract investors into Nigeria. So we can't be saying we want to attract investors in one hand. We can't be saying we are shutting our doors from them coming in the other hand.
Well, just before I let you go, Mr. Mohammed, what steps do you think the Nigerian government must take to ensure that this policy leads to long-term economic transformation rather than just being a temporary patriotic gesture?
Yeah, like I said, the government should also think of supporting those local industry that they think will meet the needs of Nigeria, either in terms of policy pronouncement like what the president has made now, and also in the area of funding, especially when it comes to expansion. Because the challenge has been that most of Nigerian businesses want to really expand, but the exchange rate is there, is one way, and then a hawkish nature of the Central Bank of Nigeria in terms of getting funding for some of these businesses, a big challenge. So two area Nigerian businesses really need support. They need government support in the area of policy to drive the growth in that sector. And then secondly, they also need that monetary support from either the government standing in as guarantor, giving them a single digit loan to be able to grow the sector that they are servicing Nigeria rather than depending on foreigners.
Well, economist Mukhtar Mohammed, many thanks for lending your thoughts on the program as always. And that's it on this episode of the program. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Okpeyemi Owosheni. See you next time.